Hello and welcome to the Kapytal Quick Start Guide. In this video, I will help you hit the ground running and start using Kapytal efficiently from the get-go. If you are not sure whether Kapytal is the right tool for you, please see the showcase video or the documentation on GitHub instead. This video is a rather fast-paced tutorial, so feel free to go along with me and pause the video as desired. Kapytal is an open-source desktop program for managing personal finances, available for free on Windows. To download the latest version, please navigate to the project's GitHub repository. The link is in the description below. Click on the Releases heading on the right side of the GitHub page. The latest release is on the top of the Releases page. Open the assets at the bottom of the latest release and download the Kapytal executable. Run the executable to install the program. Please note that it is common for antivirus software to flag the Kapytal executable as a threat. In that case, you might need to access your antivirus settings and create an exception for the Kapytal executable. If you want to know more about this topic, please visit the FAQ in the documentation. Once Kapytal is started up and ready to go, you will be greeted by two capitalist capybaras. Click the Open Demo and Templates button and select one of the category templates based on your language preference. These templates are mostly empty but contain pre-filled transaction categories, which will help you save your time. I'm going to save the file right away with a custom name, so I don't override the template with my data. And I recommend you do the same. The first step we need to take in Kapytal is to create the currencies we want to use in our accounts and transactions. Open the Currencies form by clicking this icon or via the Forms menu. On the left side there is a small section dedicated to currencies. Click on the green plus symbol to create your first currency. Enter the currency code and decimal places, for example EUR for Euro and 2 decimal places. I'm going to go ahead and also create the currency for Czech koruna. CZK, 2 decimal places. The list of codes and numbers of decimal places for state-issued currencies as defined by the ISO 4217 standard is available on Wikipedia. The link to this page is in the description below. However, any 3-letter code can be entered, which allows the creation of non-standard or even fictional currencies. For example, we can enter BTC for Bitcoin, which has 8 decimal places. If you created more than one currency like I did, you likely want to relate them with an exchange rate. Navigate to the exchange rate section and click on the green plus symbol. Select the primary and the secondary currency. If I select EUR as the primary and CZK as the secondary, it means that the exchange rate is going to quantify how many Czech crowns I will get in exchange for 1 euro. Once the exchange rate is created, we need to assign a value to it. There are 3 options. We can click on the blue arrow icon to download the latest quote from Yahoo Finance automatically. The other option is to select the exchange rate, navigate to the exchange rate history section and click on the green plus symbol to manually enter the exchange rate quote for a given day. Finally, you can also click on the folder icon to import a CSV file containing the exchange rate history. I will use the CSV file method as I already have the data ready. We can focus on the account tree now. The account tree is the widget on the left side of the main window. Let's start by creating a cash account. Cash accounts are accounts used for holding money denominated in a certain currency. There are also security accounts, which I will talk about later during this video. To create a cash account, right-click on the account tree to bring up the context menu. Click on the Add Cash Account option. Set the cash account name, its currency, and its initial balance. Please note, you can change the name or the initial balance of an account whenever you like, but your currency choice is permanent. As you create more accounts, you will naturally want to organize them into a hierarchy using account groups. Account groups are especially handy if you want to use Kapytal with your partner, as each user can have his own account group. Let me show you how to create and manipulate the account tree hierarchy. Let's say one of the users is named Adam. I will create an account group for him and position it first in the list. I will move the bank account cash account into Adam's account group. I will also create an account group for Adam's wallet, because each cash account can contain only one currency, but physical wallets can contain multiple currencies. I will create a cash account for his EUR banknotes and coins, and also for his Czech koruna notes and coins. Then I will create an account group for the second user, which we will call Eve. And I will create a cash account for her. And finally, I will create an account group for their shared finances. And I will input a savings account. Let's say I change my mind and I want to increase the initial balance of the CZK account within Adam's wallet. I can right-click it, select Edit, and increase the initial balance. As you can see, the balance of the account tree items is shown in two columns, native balance and base balance. The base balance column utilizes the base currency, which can be set and changed anytime within the currency form using this star button. The native balance column shows the balance of non-base cash accounts in their own currency. In our case, the only non-base cash account is Adam's CZK wallet. Note that none of the changes we have made so far have been saved. This is indicated by the asterisk at the end of the file name in the Kapytal main window title, or by the small yellow warning sign on the Save button. Save the changes by clicking the Save button or by pressing Ctrl S. Don't forget to save often. Now is the right time to create some transactions. Transactions are viewed and managed using the transaction table, which is this large widget on the right side of the main window. Let's start with the most common transaction types, income and expense. To create an income, click the coin icon with the green plus symbol, or press I for income on your keyboard. First, select the cash account which is going to receive the money. You can start writing the account path and let the completer show matching accounts. I will select Adam's bank account with my arrow key and confirm with Enter. Enter the name of the payee, which is the transaction counterparty. Let's say in the case of income, it could be Adam's employer. This payee doesn't exist yet, but we don't have to worry about that. Then enter the transaction date. You can use the keyboard numpad, arrows, or this calendar widget to select the day. Next up is the description, which is optional. It is good practice to write something brief and informative here, unless it is obvious. The amount field is self-explanatory. What I like to do here is select the widget using the tab key to highlight the numerical value. Once the numbers are highlighted, you can easily enter the amount using numpad keys. With categories, there are several things you can do. You can enter the name of any pre-existing category or select it using this drop-down menu. As you can see, since we use the category template file as our starting point, we already have several options here. You can also enter the name of a category which doesn't exist yet, and Kapytal will create it for you. Let's try that. Finally, tags. Every transaction type in Kapytal can contain tags, and there is no limit to how many tags a transaction can have. To see examples of using tags, refer to the glossary in the documentation or take a look at the basic demo file. Let's say Adam is a programmer and he wants to track all work-related transactions, as well as how much money he spent or gained in relation to his programming skills. For that purpose, I'm going to enter a tag named work and a tag named programming. The tag names are separated by a semicolon. These tags do not exist yet, but Kapytal can handle that. When you confirm the transaction, Kapytal is going to inform you whether any attributes do not exist yet and ask you for confirmation of their creation. This can help you catch errors if you enter wrong attribute names by accident. In our case, this is intended, so I'm going to confirm the payee, the category, and the tags. And our first transaction is complete. Now I will create an expense transaction, either by clicking the icon with the coins and the red minus symbol, or by pressing E for expense on my keyboard. I will quickly fill the boring entry fields and show you the interesting stuff. For example, the total amount of income and expense transactions can be split between any number of categories using this Split Categories button. Similarly, you can also specify amounts associated with tax. If you don't specify any amount, the tags are associated with the total transaction amount. If you click this blue icon, however, you can specify exactly how much money you want to relate to each tag. For example, you can use a tag to help you split the bills between you and your partner evenly. Since Eve paid for this grocery haul, I will create a tag called Adam owes Eve, and I will enter half of the total transaction amount. I can use this handy button for that. Selecting any number of transactions and right-clicking them brings up the context menu, which contains several actions. Edit allows you to edit any number of selected transactions simultaneously, as long as all of them are the same type. Duplicate allows you to duplicate a single existing transaction. The keyboard shortcut is the D key. This is a quick way to repeat periodically occurring transactions like various bills, salaries, subscriptions, and so on. When you duplicate a transaction, a pre-filled dialog opens. You can alter any field, typically the date or the description. Delete is used to delete any number of selected transactions simultaneously, regardless of their type. The keyboard shortcut is the Delete key. Let's delete the duplicated income. Copy UUIDs is an advanced action useful when using the UUID transaction filter. Refer to the glossary in the documentation for more details. Add tags and the remove tags actions allow you to add or remove any number of tags to any number of transactions simultaneously. Unlike the edit action, the selected transactions can be of any type. Refund action allows you to refund a single expense transaction. The keyboard shortcut is R. You can either completely or partially refund any expense transaction, and an expense transaction can be refunded by multiple refunds. The account which receives the refund amount does not have to be the account used in the refunded expense, and neither does the payee. There are some rather complicated rules associated with refunding partially refunded expenses containing multiple categories or tags, but rest assured, Kapytal can handle these rare cases just fine. The next transaction type is the cash transfer. To create a cash transfer, click the coin icon with the blue arrow or press Ctrl T on your keyboard. Cash transfer transfers money from one account to another. For example, Adam can send some money into the shared savings account. Cash transfers can also be used to convert money from one currency to another. Let's say Adam exchanged his Czech crowns for euros in an exchange office. The next big topic are securities. Securities are used to model items that have financial value which can change over time. Typical use cases are stocks, bonds, ETFs, mortgages, real estate, cars, art, and so on. To manage securities, open the Securities form by clicking this certificate icon or via the Forms menu. To create your first security, click the green plus button on the upper left side. I'm going to fill in the name of my favorite exchange-traded index fund. The symbol field requires a bit of explanation. Many exchange-traded securities have symbols, also known as tickers. You can find the symbol on the Yahoo Finance page of your security in various places, for example, here in the link or here in the brackets. Kapytal uses the symbol to fetch the current price of the security using the update quotes form. If your security does not exist on Yahoo Finance, leave the field empty. Security type can be any text you want. It is only used in asset type report to classify securities into groups by type. Since my security is an ETF, I'm going to enter ETF. Shares decimals is the number of decimal places that an amount of shares of the given security can have. Many securities have 0 share decimals, or in other words, the smallest unit is exactly 1 share, but some securities are traded in fractions, which can have more decimal places. Finally, set the currency which the security is denominated in. To set the security price, the process is very similar to the exchange rate. You can select it and set it manually using the green plus button. You can load it from CSV, or you can download it automatically from Yahoo Finance as long as the symbol is filled in. Let's try that now. Open the Update Quotes form using these blue arrows. Select the exchange rates and securities you want to update, and click Download. Please note that this can take a while, but usually less than 10 or 20 seconds. After the quotes are fetched, you can review them, unselect the ones you don't like, and save the selected ones. Before we create any security transactions, we must create a security account first. The process is very similar to cash accounts. I will create 2 security accounts, one for Adam and a shared one. There are several types of security transactions. The most typical ones are buy and sell. To create a buy, click on the security icon with the green plus, or press the B key. Let's say Adam and Eve bought 10 shares of the Vanguard ETF for €95 per share last year. I will select the security, fill in the cash account which paid for the shares, and the security account which gained the shares. I will set the transaction date, skip the optional description, and enter the number of shares and their price. I could also specify the total amount paid instead, and Kapytal would recalculate the price accordingly. To create a sell transaction, click the Security button with the red minus, or press the S key. Let's say Adam and Eve sold 5 shares of the Vanguard ETF for €111 per share, which is a nice gain. The interesting thing I will note here is that Kapytal does not stop you from selling a security which you own 0 shares of. This can be handy for modeling things like mortgages or loans. See the documentation or the mortgage demo for details. Third type of security transaction is the dividend. To create a dividend, click on the security button with the coins or press Shift-D. Dividend transaction is similar to sell transaction as the specified cash account receives money, but with dividend the security account does not lose any shares. This Vanguard ETF does not in fact pay any dividend, but let's pretend for a moment that Adam and Eve got a dividend of €4 per share last September. Finally, you can transfer securities from one security account to another using the security transfer. To create a security transfer, click on the security icon with the blue arrow. This is the rarest transaction type, but if you ever have to move your investment portfolio from one broker to another, this could be handy. If you ever wonder how many shares of a security you own in a particular security account, you can go right-click the account and select Show Securities option. Or you can simply double-click the account. But to get an even better insight into your investments, visit the Securities form again and go to the Overview tab. Not only can you see which security accounts hold or used to hold shares of your securities, you can also find a lot of interesting performance stats in this tab, like the gain, absolute return, or annualized internal rate of return. Since there is so much data available here, you can filter the columns using these widgets on the top. As you have probably noticed, the transaction table has a lot of columns. By right-clicking the table header, you can bring up a context menu allowing you to manipulate column visibility, resize the columns to contents, reset them back to their default state, or show columns which are normally hidden, like the UUID or the date and time created columns. By dragging the columns using left mouse button, you can also stretch them or reorder them. If you ever want to change the default column order, simply drag the columns into the desired positions, bring up the header context menu and select Save Column Order. Kapytal will use this column order by default from now on. If you want to focus on the transaction table and the accounts tree takes too much space, hide the account tree using this tool button. You can also do the opposite and show only the account tree by hiding the transaction table using this tool button. By the way, to sum up the amounts of several transactions quickly, select them and take a look at the bottom right corner. As you use Kapytal, the amount of transactions will naturally grow into hundreds, then thousands, and possibly even tens of thousands. The ability to filter transactions is therefore crucial, which is why Kapytal supports advanced filtering capabilities. The simplest way to filter transactions is using the transaction table search bar. This is convenient but rather slow when the number of transactions is large. The more performant way of filtering is using the transaction filter form, which you can open using the funnel icon next to the transaction table search bar. This form has many tabs. You can filter transactions by their type, date, description, accounts, categories, tags, payees, amounts, currencies, or securities. Let's try to show only the income and expense transactions using the type filter. When a filter is active, the transaction filter button is going to change its appearance. When you hover over the button, a tooltip will list the active filters. You can also find the details about the active filters using the Help button. To reset filters to their default state, press Restore Defaults and confirm. Please note that the most natural way to filter transactions by their accounts is to simply use the checkboxes in the account tree. To select or unselect all accounts, you can use these two tool buttons above the account tree. To select one particular item quickly, you can use this context menu action. Note that the sum of balances of all checked accounts in base currency is shown here below the account tree. So far, I have shown you how to manage your currencies, securities, accounts, and transactions. But what about attributes like categories, payees, or tags? Naturally, they have their own forms too. You can use these forms to create new attributes, rename them, merge them, or delete them. You can also take a look at the transactions related to the selected attributes and at the total balance associated with the given attributes. Note that in Kapytal, you can only delete objects if they are not in use by any other object. For example, you cannot delete a tag referenced in any existing transaction. But don't worry, Kapytal will not allow you to break anything by accident. Categories are a bit special because they can form tree-like hierarchies, and because they have three types: income, expense, and dual-purpose categories. You can use dual-purpose categories in both income and expense transactions. The categories which you can see here are included in the category template file we opened at the start of this video. Finally, we get to reports, which are arguably the main reason why to log so much data in the first place. Reports are Kapytal's way of analyzing and visualizing your data. Let's start with the net worth reports. These reports take a high-level view of your finances. The account report visualizes the account tree. You can hover over the sunburst chart to show more information about the slices. The asset type report shows you how the net worth is split into various currencies and securities. And finally, the time report shows you how the net worth changed over time. Cash flow reports are more dynamic and focus on the inflows and outflows over time, but they also quantify your gains or the savings rate. Finally, the category, tag, And Payee reports show you how much money you gained or spent in relation to these attributes. You can double-click the shown values or chart slices to see the relevant transactions. You can even edit transactions from within this small transaction table. The important thing to mention here is that reports generally process only the data which you can see in the main window. So if you filter out any transactions or accounts, the reports will not take them into account. This is very handy if you want the reports to focus only on something specific and remove some accounts or transactions from the dataset. Before we wrap up, I will show you the settings form, which you can open by clicking this gear icon. Here you can set several internal Kapytal settings. For example, you can set your preferred date or number formats here. In the Backups tab, you can set the locations where you want Kapytal to create backup files and how many backups you want to keep. And finally, in the Logging tab, you can specify the maximum size for the debug logs. If something goes wrong with the software, these logs can help you or me fix the issue faster. And that's all for today. This has been a quick start guide to Kapytal, in which I have introduced you to about 80% of the current capabilities of this tool. I believe by now you are fully able to use Kapytal to your benefit. If you ever want to learn more about Kapytal, please visit the documentation page on GitHub or contact me. Thanks for your attention and have a great day.